Hello folks, I recently reviewed this camera, which is the Ordro AZ50. I've tested others as well, namely the Ordro AC5 and a rebranded AC3. I think people get the idea that these generic camcorders are inexpensive for what you get. I'd say that Ordro and the multitude of other brands that these cameras get sold under have done a good job of marketing them as something greater than they really are. The ads are full of misleading claims and outright lies. Many of the reviews on Amazon are clearly fake. Having used these cameras, the claims made in some of the reviews are just patently false and completely ridiculous. In this video, I'm going to try and explain why I say that these cameras are a poor value. I don't criticize these cameras because I necessarily think someone should spend more. I criticize them because you can get far better for the same or less money in most situations. I'll attempt to demystify these cameras a little bit in terms of the high-end presentation they have in their ads. And this is basically how these cameras look in the ads. Big whopping lens, external microphone, and a carry handle. They try to make it look like a big professional setup. It looks impressive. Sure, it might not be perfect, but you'd have to spend thousands of dollars to get a name brand camcorder like this, right? No, not right. The handle is a piece of plastic that blocks the battery slot and the memory card slot. It feels durable enough, but it's a bit flexible and wobbly, and I don't see it being very helpful. Personally, I wouldn't use it. Even if you would use it, it's just a piece of plastic. It might make the camera look more impressive in the ads, and they can say it comes with a stabilizer, but it couldn't increase the value of the package very much. It isn't going to be convenient for some people to even use because it's bulky and it gets in the way. Next is the big lens that's on the front. It's a thread-on accessory that provides a wider angle. It is not equivalent to an interchangeable lens system on a higher-end camera. It's just a cheap add-on. The built-in lens on these cameras gives a tight field of view. The lens on this AZ50 is very close to a 45mm equivalent focal length. At best, the wide-angle accessory merely compensates for that tight angle, but it only makes the angle equivalent to about a 35mm focal length, which is still not very wide. Plus, it creates distortion and drastically reduces the clarity of the image. It is not a professional feature, and it's not something that should make this camera cost more than any other camera. It's a poor quality add-on that reduces image quality. What about the external microphone? It looks like a shotgun microphone, but it only looks like one. It's just a hollow tube with two tiny mic capsules at the end. It is stereo, but the stereo separation is very limited because the mic capsules are omnidirectional and they're right next to each other. Unlike an actual shotgun microphone, there is no directionality to the sound pickup. The switch has a plus 20 dB position that does nothing. It performs exactly as the 0 dB position with no level boost at all. That switch is a lie. The microphone also suffers from horrible interference and bad handling noise from the camera. The output level is very low, and it struggles to pick up voices even a couple feet away. And there's no way to adjust the level or tell if you're clipping. If I get closer to the mic to get better levels, it clips pretty easily. It might look similar to some of the expensive powered microphones out there, but it's not even close. It's bottom of the barrel, barely functional junk to make the camera look impressive in the ads and make it seem like a good value. Overall, the accessories add very little functionality and are very poor quality. So what about the camera itself? It doesn't have any optical zoom. It has a fixed focus, fixed aperture lens. It has often inaccurate colors, excessive image sharpening, no image stabilization, useless settings that don't work, a mode switch that gets bumped out of position constantly, settings that reset back to default almost every time you turn the camera off and back on, a touchscreen with poor responsiveness, settings that only show up in one mode but affect both modes, built-in stereo audio with the right microphone on the left side of the camera and the left microphone buried inside the camera so it records almost nothing but camera handling noise. It also has about 1/10 the amount of digital zoom that it claims to have, and has a block of cast iron in the back of the camcorder. But it records at 4K, so how bad could it be? This bad. It could be this bad. This is built-in video and built-in audio from the AZ50 set to auto white balance. So what do you think? If I tap on the camera, you can hear my taps in the left channel, so the left channel is working. The fixed focus hurts it quite a bit here because the minimum focus distance is around 4 feet. That's why the image is so blurry. This is now video and audio from the Fuji XP130 point-and-shoot camera. This camera costs half what the Ordro AC50 costs on its cheapest overseas listing that I could find. It's also almost 1/4 the cost of some of the listings for the AZ50 on Amazon. It's far from perfect, and again, auto white balance still isn't perfect, but if I had to pick between these two for this type of video at my desk, it would be an absolute no-brainer. Now this is video and audio from the Canon SX620 point-and-shoot camera. I found this camera on sale for over $100 less than the cheapest AZ50 listing, but even the normal price for this camera is cheaper than the cheapest AZ50 and far less expensive than the AZ50 is on Amazon. Again, not perfect, but way better than the Ordro in here. And the white balance also isn't perfect, but quite a bit better than either of these two actually. So, again, fully auto white balance and everything. So that's the Canon SX620. So that's how these cameras compare in here with, full automatic settings, but what about outside at distances where the Ordro is actually in focus? This is the Ordro AC50. I'm standing about 18 inches or so behind the microphone, and I'm recording with the built-in audio. Now I'm still using the Ordro, still at 4K, but now I'm using the external microphone, still about 18 inches away from it, and it is pointed directly at my mouth. Now I'm recording with the Fuji XP130, recording at 1080p. Again, I'm about 18 inches away from the camera, and I'm using the built-in audio. Now I'm recording with the Canon SX620HS, recording at 1080p. Again, about 18 inches or so away from the camera, and this is the built-in audio. Both the Fuji and the Canon have a wider field of view than the AZ50 does with its wide-angle attachment in place. Also for comparison, here is maximum digital zoom on the Ordro, and the wide-angle lens is not on the camera, so this is truly the tightest it can get on a distant subject. The Fuji starts much wider and has only 5x zoom, but it's optical zoom and it has digital stabilization. The Canon also starts wider, but it has 25 times optical zoom with 2 zoom speeds, and it has image stabilization as well. Here are clips recorded with each camera handheld so you can get an idea for the image stabilization. All 3 cameras were physically connected together and recording simultaneously, so any shakiness in my hands would have been exactly the same in all 3 clips. Also, just be aware that while the Ordro does have a setting called anti-shake in its menu, that setting is on here, and I've tried it both ways and it makes no difference. Both point-and-shoot cameras were at default settings and full auto for all these tests. Bear in mind, both of these point-and-shoot cameras have various options for customization settings for color, different stabilization and autofocus modes, as well as manual exposure control and high dynamic range modes. The Canon has fully adjustable picture settings for sharpness, contrast, color, skin tone, etc. As I mentioned before, both the Canon and Fuji also have wider angle lenses than the wide angle attachment on the Ordro, and both focus closer than the AZ50 does with its included macro attachment. They do this without any added attachments and without even having to change modes. Plus, they have functional autofocus that makes macro recording much more useful and convenient. Hopefully this makes it clear that I'm not bashing these generic cameras because I think people should spend more. By all means, spend less. You don't have to settle for these generic camcorders, and they're not cheap for what you get. I would much rather use either of these point-and-shoot cameras, and at least here in the US, both of these are far less expensive than this AZ50, even on a Chinese site with no accessories, no warranty, no return policy, and with an estimated shipping time of over a month. On Amazon, you at least get Amazon's return policy, but the Ordro goes for as much as $350 to $450 on Amazon. That price puts it into the range of some really nice cameras. So don't let these companies get away with lying about features, lying about what's in the camera, and selling cheap junk for far more than it's worth. Don't be fooled by the fancy ads and fancy-looking accessories. These cameras are a poor value. Do yourself a favor and at least consider other possibilities. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions or if there's still something you'd like to see me test with any of these cameras, let me know. And as always, thank you for watching. Take care.